Welcome to Captured by Women. This is the all-women host show that examines perspectives of current affairs as seen by women in Ghana. I am Nansata Yakubu, a development consultant.
I'm Elizabeth Olympia Emmanuel, a restaurateur.
I'm Dedo Kofi, an entrepreneur.
I am Sarah Safweje, a real estate developer.
It's been a week of master classes in economic fundamentals. This week, the government economic management team held a town hall meeting to engage the public on the state of the economy. As you'd expect, the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, spared no effort at cataloging the economic achievements of his government, waxing lyrical and swaggering on terminologies. Boot for Chalewote is one for keep. By the way, the benchmark values of import duties is said to have been reduced to 50%. Is this cause for celebration?
The Power Distribution Services Company has given Ghanaians an assurance that the current rampant power outages will cease within 12 days. But this is not the first time we have been given a deadline. You would recall that on 3rd March 2019, John Peter Amewu, Minister of Energy, assured Ghanaians that power outages would be a thing of the past in a week's time. Can we trust this new timeline to hold?
The spin is up next when we return from the break. Welcome back from the break. This is the spin. So ladies, the police have announced that the girls have been located, that they know where they are alive, and they are well. However, a section of the Ghanaian public, well-meaning Ghanaians, think that this is premature and it might impact the security of the victims. What do you have to say in relation to this?
In the first place, I think I heard one of the family, the relatives of one of the kidnapped girls, aghast in shock at the police. And I think that's one little flaw that the police missed on. If they had had this critical information, they should have at least called in the family, called them into a private meeting and say, this is what we have at the moment, so we are going to release this kind of information. But for them not to have given them brought them up to speed is inconsiderate, considering that the girls have been lost for 9 months. What do you expect the family to think when they hear that, oh, we found the girls, they are safe, and we are making attempts to get them back? I don't get it.
I think the other thing is also whether they have found them, they have seen them, exactly, or they have heard from them, they've spoken to them on the phone, or how did they find them? Did they go to the location where they were? Those are the missing pieces as well, because we need to have some assurance, or the families need to know that, okay, they saw them and they were in good condition, or they spoke to them, or those information.
I think it's possible that they may have an informant, or perhaps they've been able to plant someone, because the assurance with which they said they know the location, and they stated that the girls are alive and well, without having visual contact, I don't think they could have made that statement. So I would like to believe that perhaps they have their eyes on the place and they're waiting to see how they will extricate the girls.
And it's very unfortunate they didn't inform the families before coming out public, because to just hear it in public.
I think in general, what it seems is that the statement is a bit vague, and there are a lot of ifs, why, but, where, is, that kind of, it's letting people speak too much into it. If you say you've located them, is it because you are negotiating for their release? Is it because you actually have them in a safe house? Because for a law enforcement organization, you wouldn't expect them to just come out and say, we know where they are. If they say there must be more to it, or they want us to speculate that there's more to it, because we know Ghana Police Service
compromise their investigation.
I think that if you have them, you let people know that these are the girls, they have been found. I think that in itself reposes confidence than in announcing that you know where they are.
Unless the people who have them gave certain conditions, saying that you are only allowed to say XYZ, you can't say more than that, or else the girls life will be in danger. I don't know.
But then again, let's just go a step further. Maybe this conspiracy theory, maybe in saying that they are prompting the kidnappers to move location,
so they
then
can get them.
They can get them.
Oh, well, they should have had the decency of speaking to the family in question, so that this kind of outburst and the family is not confident about what the police have done so far.
Well, hopefully they can address that flaw that happened. They should be able to address that going forward.
What would be the psychological state of these girls at this point? Where are they being? It's 9 months.
9 months. And 9 months is a long time for people to be away from home, for you don't even know what family is going through. And to know how the foundation of this case was that the kidnapper actually escaped from police cells. So if the police, so to speak, allowed one of the kidnappers or the main kidnapper, whoever he was, to escape, and the same police are telling us they know where they are, you sometimes you can't,
What's the level of communication between the families of the victims and the police? That's worrying.
That's why I'm saying there are too many questions that the police leaves us to ask and to try to answer by just this statement. I don't think it's doing us a lot of good to just say we know where they are and they are alive and well.
Well, I think we have to give them a little bit of time and see what happens.
The other thing also is you realize that with all these cases with kidnapping that we have heard so far, it almost always involves Nigerian. And
no, I don't think that's a safe
thing. Well, the elephant in the room. I think we should talk about it. I think that
when the police come out with the reports, I think they are insensitive by saying believed to be Nigerian. I think that is just wrong.
So the believed to is
not. Yes, it's what may given the impression that most of these are. But the police in the first place should not say believed to be Nigerian. You've caught a gentleman, describe him as an individual, a suspect. But putting in the nationalities, it is the police who are misleading, police and the media. I will not leave the media out of this because it is both the media and the police. Because reportage of what police say comes through the media. We need to be sensitive about these things.
No, are you saying
so that
xenophobia
does not fall in?
They shouldn't call out and say the person's nationality?
No, we shouldn't. It's a suspect. It's a suspect. It's like saying this Lebanese man put the girl's face in pepper. Man. Why should we do that?
Why not?
But if a Lebanese man puts a
girl's face in pepper, what is that?
It's a Ghanaian who has done it. We don't say a Ghanaian man has put a girl's face in pepper.
If they say Kofi Amewu, you will see the name and it's Ghanaian. If the name is Sunday Okechukwu, it's Sunday Okechukwu.
I disagree. Because when you read, when it's offenses, crime committed by Ghanaian locals, by Ghanaians, you don't see the person's tribe or nationality being mentioned.
Ghanaian. The person is Ghanaian.
The person's name.
There are Ghanaians who are doing bad things.
The worst form of the reportage is usually even the accidents that you say 13 people died, including 2 women. As if the women were not part of.
Especially these kidnapping
issues are mentioning Nigerians. So is there some correlation of importation of
the issue from across the borders?
Because maybe there are 5 kidnappers. They will mention the 2 Nigerians
and then leave the 3 Ghanaians.
Well, something we can look
possible, into. But then that still means that there were 2 Nigerians. That doesn't still take away the fact. My issue is, in this Takrady case, the man was Nigerian. That one was established. So even if we don't know the other Nigerians, this Nigerian we knew.
Yeah, the 50-year-old woman who was kidnapped
was also Nigerian.
They said believed to be. The reportage said believed to be
Nigerian.
Because
maybe the names of... We are not disputing the fact that they might not be. But the point is, at the time the investigation was going on and they wanted to report, if they are believed to be Nigerians, that's fine. If they are believed to be from Togo or wherever, I think it should be stated.
Those Nigerians who have been in Ghana for over centuries.
Nigerians.
They have Nigerian names, but they are Ghanaians.
But they are Ghanaians.
How do they have Nigerian names?
Oh yes.
There's settlement.
That one is a lot. That one doesn't. Yeah, but if they are Ghanaians, they will say they are Ghanaians. Yeah. Or they can be Ghanaians of Nigerian origin. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that there's nothing to be emotional about this. It's dispassionate.
No, I think we just
if you are Nigerian, you are Nigerian. If you are Ghanaian, you are Ghanaian.
And there are good Nigerians and there are bad Nigerians.
Like there are good Ghanaians and bad Ghanaians.
Everywhere in the world.
I'm uncomfortable with this line of conversation.
The point is a fact that a lot of people, I mean, the cross-section of the Ghanaian public, people seem to think that this is a subtle importation from Nigeria, this kidnapping issue, because we know that for them it's a much bigger problem for them that they are also struggling with. So it's a genuine question that we need to.
So what
to
about
discuss.
the British girls who were
The
robbed
British
and raped?
by Ghanaians.
The suspects
they
have
are
been
Ghanaians,
found.
and they've been found as well.
The nationality never came up.
The nationality never came out. That's the great amazing.
Yes, Ghanaians. We haven't
So why
refused
would
that.
you? So why don't you then say that? Oh, there were 5 Ghanaian.
Because we're
nationals.
talking
But there are
about
5 Ghanaians.
kidnapping.
We are talking about this, the Takrady girls in this case,
Yes.
and why people are thinking, because a Nigerian name has been, I wouldn't say fingered, but a Nigerian name was established in this case. So people are thinking this is the case. And also, this is about one of the few kidnappings that in recent times, for over 9 months, they haven't been located. Maybe the other ones, they find them after a week or 2, or they pay ransom or whatever. But for 9 months, they haven't been. So that is why it's a much more, serious issue that people are talking about, on the streets everywhere.
Okay. Does anyone happen to know if the CID, for example, has a counseling service for kidnapped victims? Do you happen to know?
You mean when they find
Well,
them?
if
when
they-
they
if
when
they
they are
did-
found?
When they are found.
If they
Well,
did
in the,
autopsy-
hopefully, well, maybe for rape they have. So if they have,
CID.
if they have a counsel, it's possible.
The Boko Haram girls, when they were rescued, they were given intensive
What
counseling.
about Dopsu? I think is Dopsu not part of? Well, Dopsu
They're
probably
under
has-
resourced,
Dopsu
so
has
they don't have the
counseling.
counseling.
So I think-
We don't even have safe houses. I mean, there's only one safe house for the social welfare.
But that's
It's
not for kidnapping.
That's not for.
It's not for kids. That's
It's for
abuse,
domestic
right? Domestic
violence,
violence.
And I don't know about you ladies, but I'm very glad to hear that they found the perpetrators of that brutal murder on Josephine Asante, the lady who was from the ports. And it turns out to be her driver and her house help.
Oh, it's 2 of them.
2 of them.
Both guys,
Wow.
or is a house
They
helper
haven't-
lady?
they haven't
didn't
been
identify.
No, it's a
specified.
houseboy. So well, that's a man. Isn't it?
Yeah, no,
The
the
man.
And they say house
It's a
help, but
houseboy, a
you know,
house
Yeah.
help.
from the
And
circumstances,
it's always
they
been
believed
the
it
boy who
must
was
be
It
an
was a man,
inside.
yeah.
Yes.
It would have been an
He
inside
lived-
job.
she lived
Yes.
with
Was she
the boy.
sexually attacked?
No, I believe she wasn't. It was never
Because
confirmed.
Initially,
I
they
heard
mentioned,
news of
yeah.
semen
No,
being
that was in
tested.
the media, but I think I read a report to say there was no sexual. It was a pure murder.
Murder.
Yeah. I think in the beginning,
They made away with
the young man was arrested with her phone. The very early stages when it
Yes,
happened. That was what made people, and then people started saying, "Oh, but he's of small stature and wouldn't have done it." And I'm like, that's not how
But see,
these
now it
things
turns out
work.
there were 2 of
Now
them.
it turns
so-
out he
so
had
it's
help.
meant to do
So I mean, it's
With
good.
the
It's good that they
driver.
found.
The driver
It's
and
good they
the
found.
house.
I sense a renewed sense of vigor and professionalism about the Ghana Police Service. They're keeping us informed. They're taking the initiative to hold press conferences to update us on some of the more memorable cases, and I think that's a very positive move in there. Coming up next on Captured by Women, how is Ghana's economy treating you? We talk the economy when we come back from the break.
Welcome back. So this week, the Vice President had a town hall meeting where he talked about the general state of the economy. To help us make a good understanding of what he talked about is Professor Eric Osei-Sibe from the Department of Economics, University of Ghana. Welcome to Captured by Women, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So what's your general take on the Vice President's State of the Economy speech?
Well, my take is that I think it was a very good exercise. It affords all of us the opportunity to know the state of the Ghanaian economy, how far we've come, and where we are actually going. And so the Vice President took the opportunity to address some key concerns and issues that have come up recently. Notable among them is to highlight on issues of macroeconomic stability. He talked about issues of inclusive and transformation of our economy. He talked about issues of digitization that is transforming the economy from informality to a more formal sector using ICT. And then he talked about the port reforms, the fact that he is seeking to reduce import duties, which is something to do with trade facilitation to ensure efficiency in the port and to reduce imported prices, which will go a long way to increase consumer welfare, because once prices come down, everyone can demand. And so I think it was a good exercise, and I wish that this is repeated every year so that we can bridge the gap between what the managers of the economy does and then those of us sitting and then watching. So we can ask questions, and it also gives the ordinary person the opportunity to ask. You could clearly see that the selection of people who were asking questions were done more randomly, and it wasn't designed or pre-selected, and which I think was good. Yeah. So I think as we move on, I can share some of the detail. Yeah.
What has been the economic impact of the consolidation of the 7 banks regarding unemployment, loss of jobs to the people? What is the economic impact of that?
Well, I think by and large it was a good exercise. It was something that we should do, although the effect is in the immediate term is quite painful, because many people have lost their jobs, some people have lost their capital, their investments, and all of that. But when you look at it on the whole, I think it's a necessary evil, because you look at in 2015, 2016, the then government actually commissioned the asset review, quality review committee to look into the performance of these banks. And it became clear at the time that many of these banks are actually going through very serious challenges, to the extent that if we do not intervene, depositors were going to lose their money. And therefore, when the new government came, it didn't have much choice to intervene to protect depositors' funds. The bottom line is, you and I are funds that have been deposited in the banks. How do we protect them so that at any point in time you can have your savings? And to do that will mean that some people will have to lose their job, some people will have to lose their capital. So on the whole, I think it was a good exercise, and
a necessary exercise.
Yeah, a necessary exercise, and that's also now strengthened the banking system. The banking system is now well capitalized, meaning that there's more funds sitting in the books of these banks, which then means that they now have the ability and the capability to give out credits, which is good for this economy. If you look at the data that was presented by the VIP, Dr. Baumia, you realize that the growth of private credit has actually started going up.
Okay.
Yeah, and that means that private sector, individual firms can actually get access to credit, and that really can be a game changer for the growth of this economy.
At the same time, on March 29th, we all read the Bloomberg report that is seeking to look at our stocks as the worst performing stocks in about 98 other countries, and the first couple of months we are down somewhere, and there's so much investors have lost confidence, people are repatriating themselves, their capital, credit, everything, and yet you are saying that the banks are what do we make of that, and how does that relate to the macroeconomic stability of the country?
Yes, at the time when this cleanup was being exercised, the market was quite apprehensive. They were concerned about what was going to happen. They were quite uncertain. And so that apprehension actually manifested itself in their investment, particularly with the stock market. And so it was a matter of they not knowing what was next, what was going to happen, how was this cleanup going to impact on the economy. So they were very agitated, very quite concerned. And so it informed their decision making, which then resulted in many of them offloading their holdings, their shareholdings, and taking money, and also reduced confidence significantly in the capital market. Some funds were flown out of the country, but that appears to be reversing with the success that has been chalked by Bank of Ghana in cleaning up and restoring the banking sector to soundness. You could really see that the investor confidence is gradually picking up, which is also reflecting in the CD that we are seeing. It is part of the reason why that confidence, the lack of confidence, and
too early to assume that, because the CD went up so high and then it came down.
Right.
And it's still a very short time to actually say with confidence that
perhaps from the economics.
Yes,
I think the simple question: where should government invest? That's I know it will sound a simple, but it's not. Where should government invest to stabilize the city and put money in the pocket of Ghanaians? Just
Well,
tell us, small teasers, where should government invest?
That is interesting. I mean, first and foremost, for any economy to be successful is to stabilize the macroeconomic environment, stability. It should come first. And if you look at what this government has done, essentially over the last 2 years, is to try to bring some stability in the macroeconomic environment. It is quite unfortunate that we've seen this cedi depreciating at a much faster rate than even the market anticipated. So, but what I've said is that, and what even Dr. Baumia said is that the depreciating of the currency was actually not to do with the weakness in the economic fundamentals. Often when we talk about economic fundamentals, we're talking about your inflation, your interest rate, your fiscal deficit, your trade surplus, and all of that. Fortunately, we seem to be doing good. All these indicators appear to be trending in the right direction, right? So it begs the question why we're seeing the cedi depreciating. And part of the reason really is that negative sentiment. The confidence of investors actually dipped as a result of the banking sector cleanup, as a result of government actually announcing that we are going to exit the IMF program. The market didn't really see their way clear what policy direction government was going to pursue. And so it actually triggered some kind of speculative attack. People begin to speculate. People holding bond began to offload the bond, taking their money out of the country and put enormous pressure. Don't forget, it also happened at the beginning of the year where firms were closing their accounts, they were paying profits to their shareholders who are not in this country but outside this country. They were paying their creditors who live outside the country. So all of that put together put enormous pressure. And so once that is done, what we are seeing is the reversal of the situation, because now people seem to now begin to think that, well, it appears that the IMF has confidence in the economy. It appears that government seems to have gotten it right. So the speculative attacks are now being played down. So the demand for the dollar has reduced. And then also we also seen that the central bank and the Ministry of Finance have been successful raising this 3 billion euro bond, which the anticipation is that is going to add to the dollars that is already in the country. So the same factors that cause the cedi to depreciate that sharply is the same factors that is the opposite factors that are causing it to appreciate. And so it is more likely that we're going to see some relative stability. Okay. Now, on the question of where government should invest, I mean, by and large, it has to do government investing in the productive sectors of the economy and ensuring that we export more.
Exactly. That's why. So I'm coming to because of the import duties. You see, if we are a country that is importing practically everything, and at a state of the nation, you are giving more props to import duties, and you are not talking about what would happen for export. So we are going to be in this cycle, appreciate, depreciate, appreciate, depreciate. Party A comes, party B comes, everybody comes, appreciate, depreciate. We are not making progress. What we are doing is knee-jerk. So every time there's a sore, you put iodine on it, cover it up until the next time you fall. Because that's exactly
well, I mean, it's all part of it. You know, trade facilitation is one of the key indicators for export competitiveness and trade competitiveness, right? If you have your port system, which is inefficient, you are more likely not to actually attract investments into your country.
No, but there's a difference between ineffective port and reducing import duties.
Yes, it's part of it. If the costs of doing business at the port is so high, it renders you uncompetitive because you are comparing yourself with sister countries, okay, like Togo, like Benin, like Kenya and others. And you realize that they have a more efficient import system where when you import, you pay just little on your imports, all right? And so to make us competitive, as Dr. Bamia said, you realize that Togo, as small as it is, have more container volumes than we have. Yes, that is the thing.
It's a free port.
Yes,
because we have government intervention currently. Because currently there's a big hula baloo at the ports. From Unipass to what's the other one? West Blue to every time there's a change, and that change there's a bad transition. So you have GCNet, you have Unipass, you have West Blue, you have everybody.
Yeah.
So even that intervention in itself is a result of why the ports have challenges. You say,
Yeah, so that has to be streamlined.
The law can be there. You can have a free port law. But if government cannot get the right personnel or the right department or agency to handle it, so like Sarah said, you can have import duties, and you can have an ineffective port or have an effective port that is not being allowed to do its work.
It's
so
very
it's
true. I mean, some of us have
situation.
said that we have to look at the administrative and the structural nature of things in the ports, particularly in some other countries, like even Nigeria, they have a single window system, you know, where everything you have to do, you pass it through just one single window. And the paper situation have all been condensed into one. So you fill one form and it gets you through everything. So within 2-3 days, you are able to clear your goods from the port. It's necessary. And like you said, we also have to be mindful, although it is good that these import duties have been reduced, we have to be mindful that, you know, it wouldn't trigger or it wouldn't result in unintended consequences where everybody thinks that, well, it's now too cheap to import. So then products will begin to flood into.
They're already here.
Yes, so we need to, and that will mean that
because
all of us.
50%, not to catch you, but the 50%,
Yeah.
is it? Because I know from importing things into the country that if I brought goods worth, say, $1,000, the duty I end up paying is about, it's more than 50%, it's about maybe 50,
Cumulatively,
not the duty, but in total, what I end up, the charges in total, is about 56%. So when we hear that there's a 50% reduction, is it on that total cost, or is it on a particular aspect of all the charges that come together? So in the end, we are actually not going to see any much improvement.
Taking you back to the depreciation of the cedi, the president set up a bipartisan committee. What have been the findings so far?
I think what was an intention to do.
I don't think
It wasn't set up.
No, not
It hasn't
yet.
been instituted.
Yes, so it was yet to.
That would have
be
been
set
the
up.
opposition and the ruling government.
Well,
set it up.
I mean, yeah,
Yes,
for people,
bipartisan.
and independent-minded people to really look at, because sometimes we wonder what is really going on. Funds can easily leave this country in minutes. If you go to the informal sector, to the area, you see these guys sitting there with huge sums of money, and they can change any amount of money that you require. Yes, and we really don't know where they are getting these funds from. So I think some form of information, some form of investigation could help for us to know the channels through which these monies leave the shores of this country. Yeah.
Professor, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us an insight into the state of the nation. And thank you for coming to Captured by Women.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've been speaking to Professor Eric Osei Asibe from the University of Ghana Department of Economics.
We are just about a week of getting Ghana permanently rid of power outages. Hooray! But that's according to PDS. Can we take this promise to the bank? That's coming up next on Captured by Women. Welcome back from the break. I'm Elizabeth Olympio Emmanuel. All Ghanaians are expecting the rampant power outages to cease permanently in about a week's time. Really? Joining us to discuss this issue is Kwesi Anamwa-Sechi, Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security. Sir, you're welcome to Captured by Women.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Are we to expect the seizure of these rampant power outages really within a week's time?
Well, before I go ahead, I feel really captured. Sandwiched between strong women like you. Well, it's wonderful.
Thank you for coming.
Well, it's difficult vouching for the politician and to say that we are confident that this will cease after a week. What we know from IES is that the program is scheduled to take 2 weeks. That's the interconnection of these two pipelines, the West Africa Gas Pipeline and the Ghana Gas Pipeline. It should be done within 2 weeks. So this from the engineering perspective. But there are other issues that really affect supply of electricity in Ghana. Last 3 weeks, we were assured that we are going to have uninterrupted supply of power. Just a week ago, we started experiencing something different. And so there is a mix of issues that goes into it, some financial, some technical, and some planning. And for these outages, if I should tell you what's really the case is, I would say that it's partly financial and poor planning. That's where we have.
It's just a bit odd that soon after the takeover from PDS, that's when we started experiencing this whole thing. And
from ECG,
it's been consistent. This morning, I didn't have power at home. So what really, like you're saying, what really is the problem?
PDS arrived at the wrong time.
Okay.
Just a coincidence.
Okay.
Let's look at the streams in the power chain. We have generation handled by VRA and the independent power producers. Then we have transmission, which is handled by Gridco. Then distribution, which is ECG today we call PDS. But the problem we're experiencing today is a question of generation and transmission.
So
but then the distribution is a combination of factors. So if you come to the distribution end, that's where we have a lot of the financial challenge. Okay, so PDS just arrived at the wrong time, but the problem doesn't sit with them directly.
But managing the problem sits with them. Managing
Right
the
now,
load shedding schedule, communicating with the public, because as the end users, they are the most direct entity.
Sarah, it's true because for me as a consumer and you, we look up to the distributor being able to serve us power. So
that is
that's
who
the only
we
person
pay.
with that, of course. So we are right in that thought, and we expect that they understand what happened upstream, and if they know, they should communicate to us as consumers, because most of us even pay for what we'll consume. And if I paid for my power, all I expect is serve me the power. But in between all this is the PURC, the regulator. If I'm not getting power within 48 hours, there is a policy that says that calls PDS or ECG to publish a load shedding plan. And that's what we are missing today. And load shedding is a word that all politicians want to shy away from. I don't know whether it's the shame of it or what. But that's
helpful
fair.
because then you can
It is
plan.
a both loser.
You can actually plan.
That's what
your
happens
day
when
and
you
your
talk
time.
more than your pay. You need to understand how the sector works before you go making promises.
True.
And what really lubricates the sector is cash flow.
Yes.
You mentioned that one of the problems is financial. Now, in the takeover agreement of PDS over ECG, were they not supposed to come in with some level of investment, come in with money? Did they?
Elizabeth, yes, they have to come in with money. There were about 43 conditions precedent. Unfortunately, PDS was able to meet less than 30 of these. Quite unfortunate. A MEDA sat down for us to go through all this. We are collecting data and more information.
How when they haven't met the condition?
It's quite unfortunate. There is one key condition, that there should be a performance bond, a bank guarantee to show that every commitment from your side, you'll be able to do that. And they should have a bond or bank guarantee from an AA plus bank rated by Moody's and the rest. Unfortunately, they couldn't do that. And that condition has become condition subsequent. Today, PDS is collecting March bills when they took over somewhere after mid-March. Quite unfortunate. But then we are putting our figures together, further and better particulars. And at the right time, we'll speak to Ghanaians.
What about the issue of us paying more? The tariff being increased if we are to get better service? Because there have been calls in the public. Everybody seems to be confused because PDS, the assumption was once they come, we are going to have stable electricity. Now they are here, we are not. And we've already heard some of the politicians saying we would have to pay a higher tariff for stable service.
Nasata, is true. I only want to be assured that if I pay realistic price, I will have realistic, uninterrupted supply of electricity. And PURC being the regulator and the person who sits among the utilities and decides this tariff should also assure Ghanaians that, look, pay this, pay a cost-reflective tariff, and I will ensure that you get your money's worth. That's the point we got into. Today, what we pay for electricity can't cover the cost of producing electricity and distributing it. And so we are paying less, we are consuming, and debt is mounting. And this mountain debt, Sarah, will pay for it in due course with interest. Today, a liter of fuel that you buy, you pay a levy on it to pay legacy debt.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so Ghanaians should be bold enough to confront reality and say, give us realistic tariff, but let us have our power. Do you know the cost of not having power for a day or two? It far outweigh what you will pay in a month.
Had power. The path of power generation, you mentioned three main sectors, stakeholders: generation, transmission, and distribution. At some point, you have the IPPs. So a lot of these IPPs are producing more power than we can transmit. If that is the situation, kindly correct me.
That we can
and
consume.
that we can consume, because the infrastructure to transmit all the power that is being produced is absent. So we need to also invest in the gridco sector where they need to put in more infrastructure. But then again, once government signs with the IPPs, we are also bound to pay them for the power that they produce. So we are also generating and increasing the debt that we have.
It is true. What we need to do as a country, it's not a bad idea to have excess power.
Because you can
But
export.
the power must go somewhere.
You see,
Sure.
unfortunately,
Must.
it is the case.
You know, get
We
it.
have power installed capacity of more than 4,500 megawatts today. Our peak demand is less than 2,700. Why are we not getting the power?
Exactly.
So that's where
you should tell us.
Please explain that
Yes.
little angle to layman's terms.
the system of transmission is inefficient. And so when I hear that ECG owes Grico over 900 million Ghana cedis, how do they retool their system? How do they do upgrade? How do they change obsolete equipment? Transmission losses in Grico system is more than 4% on an annual basis. 4% can handle the whole of water region for the year.
Wow.
So you see what we are losing. And so even what we are producing as at Monday, about 2,200 thereabouts, that we don't have enough for everybody. What's the power the IPPs or all the generating plants are producing? The 2,700. Mind you, 4% will be lost through transmission. So you won't have the 2,200. And when it comes to distribution, that is worse, more than 15%.
It's also lost.
In fact, all the power that we give to ECG or PBS, as we speak today, they are unable to account for almost a quarter of it.
Wow.
I'm just still trying to put my head around. So this issue of PDS and ECG, especially the fact that they didn't meet all the conditions, what's the way going forward? No, because if we had ECG managing our
We might as well have left it
and
as it
we
is.
were expecting that someone else was going to come in and take over
invest
and
all
improve
those
upon
things.
that
Yeah.
service, and they didn't
We
meet
are
all the
being
conditions,
shortchanged.
then why did we have to go ahead? At least give them time to make sure they meet the conditions, and then we know that they're coming in to do something that's going to be more
enhance it.
efficient.
So the money that was mentioned, the millions, the
In
500
the
million, when
sector-
does it start working?
In the sector sits a table called corruption as well.
Ugly monster.
Okay? And every step and everything within that chain, people want to take advantage of it. As of today, we don't know the local partners of PDS by name. The names we found, some of them, you can't even find their table and their office. Okay? There's a whole investigation that we are doing with most of the think tank. We are looking at all this. As we speak today, we've come across a letter that's asking PRC to sit with PDS over tariff, because PDS is proposing a tariff. And now PRC have to sit down with them and say, look, I am PDS. this is what I can charge to break even. And the finance ministry is directing PURC to sit with them. Is that fair? Who has the power to detect this? And why the special dispensation for PDS? These are questions Ghanaians should start asking.
So where is the money PDS is supposed to invest? The plenty money they mentioned, where is it?
We are yet to see.
At what point does it start working? Because if we are coming in and we have to give them increase in tariff,
They couldn't even show the bank.
So where is the money? So it was just
it's quite unfortunate, and the fear is we will sit down one day and this thing will blow in our face.
Yeah.
I sat with the communication director of the Ministry of Energy, and I told him that for the past 5 months, hydro has been doing on average terms more than 52% for us. We have been relying on hydro more than this thermal and the rest for the past 5 months since November. It is not fair. We are drafting the lake, and it will come and blow in our face just like it did in '82 and somewhere 2008 and 2013, 14, and politicians were denying everything that we put across. Today, this is where we come. And so if the distribution arm, we find things gone amiss, and the other sectors too, we see leakages and inefficiency, of course, we're sitting on time bomb.
So if we have all this information and all this much knowledge about what to do, what's going wrong, why are we not rectifying the problem?
Dado, you were capturing me. My ladies are capturing me. You see, when I say planning is one of the issues, I mean it. We had almost a national blackout.
Yes.
Not once, but twice. You knew you were doing maintenance on a key transmission system from Abuadi through Tema to Volta region, a 320 kV line. It's like a trunkway, a highway of electricity. You are shutting it down for maintenance. Assuming we shut this highway for maintenance, you can imagine the congestion will go to the other side. So for electricity, there will be overload on the other systems, transmission lines, when you take away this major line. The common sense, permit my word, is to ask the generators, reduce the amount of power you are producing because we can't evacuate because we reduce the transmission system by one trunk.
Exactly.
And let's do load shedding.
Yes.
This is the technocrats' thoughts. Politicians will say load shedding, please manage it.
No.
That's why it cannot be. And what happened was the system tripped to the extent that even one of the plants, T2, had to shut down, and for 2 days they found difficult to bring it up.
Oh dear.
Ladies, 12 days, we have been educated. 12 days from PDS sounds far from what we have heard with the explanations given from Pa Kwesi this afternoon. We'll be back from
So ladies, what has been the high point for you in today's discussion?
For me, it's the whole PDS and ECG insight. I mean, the fact that this is actually what's happening on ground, and it only takes a matter of planning and looking into the whole situation properly and then doing the right thing. I think the education I got on that has been really good. And so we know what to expect. We're getting ready.
It looks like Dumso is not going away, and it's unfair to us consumers that our policeman, the PURC, is not being up to task. By this time, there should have been several press conferences to speak to us consumers. It is unfair. It is unreasonable. We are losing revenue. We are losing our businesses. We are losing gadgets at home. They need to be responsible for us. Seriously.
Yeah, I want to add my voice to the issue of Dumso, but seeing that we are a lot of, everybody's the net for now, I would also talk about the issue of the economic fundamentals. Are they weak or are they strong? Are we rising? Are we coming out of a crisis to something better?
Time will tell.
Time will tell. So that has been my high point, just to say that it's not enough to speak at a town hall meeting. Let's see action. Let's see an implementation that would help us so that it reflects positively on the economy. Because all these issues, I think, are tied up to the same economic fundamentals. Yeah.
For me, it's also been doom-so, but I would like to talk briefly about the police, and that I'm encouraged by the information flow that they are giving towards us. For a long time, we've never been updated on what's been happening in major cases, but now at least we are getting some information, so we commend them for that.
Viewers, thank you very much for watching us today. Join us again, same time next week on Captured by Women.